You are now listening to You Heard. On today's episode of You Heard, we are joined by AJ, founder of Soul Rehab, and we dive into why affirmations are so powerful and how to use them in order to manifest things within your own life.
On today's episode of You Heard, we have the amazing, beautiful, intelligent AJ, founder of Soul Rehab. AJ is a creative digital marketer by day, where she runs her own agency and is a cheerleader of women by heart. She is currently based in LA, but has Southern roots. And through her own journey, she has found a passion to encourage people who feel stuck in their pain. She uses Soul Rehab as a reminder that you can and will get through what you're going through if you decide to fight. She is recently married, loves sweet tea, and anything to do with sports. Welcome, AJ. How are you doing tonight?
Oh, thank you. Hi. I'm doing really good. I'm really excited to be here.
We're super excited to have you, and I'm really looking forward to sharing all that you're going to share today. So I'm going to give you the floor. Go ahead and dive into your topic for today.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Natalia. So I wanted to talk about Soul Rehab and what that is. And basically, Soul Rehab is a mindset, a warrior's mindset, a fighter's mindset. I always think of the visual of when you put your boxing gloves on. I think everybody who has had to overcome any pain has that moment where they realize, I can't let this keep me down any longer. It's time to go beyond that. Soul Rehab is a commitment to yourself, not to give up and not to let your pain define you. I think so often we experience pain and then that's it. That's the lens through which we see everything. And so Soul Rehab is the exact antithesis to that, and saying that I am so much more than what has happened to me. What has happened to me is awful. It's heartbreaking. I got to fight on. I'm sure you've probably had your own type of Soul Rehab moment.
I stumbled upon Soul Rehab just being on Instagram, and once in a while you just find people and accounts, and I was like, this is awesome. And I started listening to your affirmation recordings on Spotify, and I was like, wow, I needed this. Definitely that kind of aha moment or that epiphany moment. This is not something that I should endure anymore. And this isn't something that I believe that I deserve anymore. So what do I need to do to move past this? And you're so right in saying we go through pain and we go through trauma and we allow it to define us and everything that we do, rather than fight and move past it and learn how to have different kinds of tools that aren't necessarily rooted in our trauma, but are rooted in our happiness and our peace. And I think one of my Soul Rehab moments was after graduating from college, just being so exhausted from trying to navigate the world that I was living in. I just felt very, very stuck, like what we said in your intro, kind of like stuck in my pain, stuck in this cycle that I couldn't necessarily find a way out. And funny enough, I decided to move to the South. So I'm in your home area. And I think for me, the South, kind of coming from New York City, the South looked like this refuge because things are taken at a lot more slower pace. And I think I just needed to slow down in my life to really just take the time to get to know myself and who I was outside of just like being a hustler and being in New York and just never really having time to think beyond what is the next thing that I'm supposed to do. Like, what's the next thing on my schedule? What's the next big goal that I have to achieve? There was no sense of peace or time or stillness in between anything that I was doing. So I picked up and moved to Houston. Though I miss my family and miss my friends, because everybody's up there, of course, still, I consider moving to Houston, the 3 years that I've been here now, my vacation years, because it was the first time that I really felt like I could take a step back and evaluate who I was and what my life was worth and what I wanted out of my day to day. And I'm so thankful for what Houston has given me, because I just felt like that was something that I couldn't achieve living in New York and kind of just being in the same environment that, as much as I love that environment, also caused that kind of trauma and pain and this cycle that I needed to break.
Wow, I love that so much. You literally answered my next question, which was how does your soul rehab evolve? So I'll talk about my personal journey. Mine is kind of similar in that it was during college. Basically, I went to college thinking that like, woo, it's your first time away from home. Like you're gonna like have a great time and just explore what it means to be an adult. And I literally had no idea what was awaiting me on the other side. College was like brutal for me. And I always say like I had to go to college to heal. And I had no idea. Like I was getting my major in communications, but I really feel like I was getting my life study in healing because it really brought me back to a place like the core of it all. And I literally had to return home to my pain. And there was so much about me that I thought was me, when in fact it was just a reflection of the pain I was carrying. Even stuff like I used to be super nonchalant and I thought I was like cool, like super chill, doesn't really show a lot of like emotions. And when in fact I was so paralyzed by pain that I could not bear to be sensitive to anything else. Other things like I couldn't hug, like I couldn't have like the physical manifestation of closeness because I was just so locked up on the inside. And so my soul rehab journey started then. And I actually got super depressed. And that's kind of ended up being like one of the heartbeats. Like I really have a heart with soul rehab for people who are depressed and like feel hopeless. And I think for my personal journey with depression, it was the fact that I thought this is just it. My life isn't going to change. This is just what it is. And to me, that was the most depressing thing ever. So having to recognize that, you know what, sucks. This is awful, but this isn't it. But it's only not going to be it if you make the decision for it not to be it. And so my soul rehab evolution ended up being like the most beautiful, but also the most painful thing I've ever had to go through. Because it's really scary having to go back to that core, scary having to confront the very thing that like try to take you out and break you. And so I always like to think of it like sometimes when you like break an arm or something, like the doctor actually has to break it more in order for it to heal properly. Out of that, one of the biggest tools that I use, I mean, I had therapy, I did journaling, like I was trying every self-care practice of like personal exploration, but something that really hit that you kind of mentioned before was affirmations. And so do you use affirmations?
So it's something that I have been trying to practice. I know that it is a amazing tool for healing and being on this journey of self-love. And I admire the people who record themselves and put it on Instagram or TikTok and stuff. And you're just like, oh, that was beautiful. Like, I'm so inspired. But I've had a really hard time doing it myself. And kind of like to what you said, it could be very painful to get to the core of things. And I think for a lot of my pain or trauma, I've blamed myself for, and I'm in this position where I'm learning how to forgive myself. So funny enough, yesterday I did take some time to practice affirmations because I knew I was going to be doing this recording with you today. And I'm like, you know what? This is somebody who practices this. I've listened to her affirmations before. And this is something that I need to learn how to also do for myself so I can better connect and understand the tools that you are putting out there and saying are important. I was looking at myself. I was looking at my reflection, trying to look at myself in the eyes, not be uncomfortable doing that, and acknowledging that I need to forgive myself and give myself grace and the space to understand that anything that I have ever done was a part of my survival, or was what I thought how I needed to love myself, or how I needed to do things. And now that I'm aware, and now that I'm in a different place, that I can move on from those kinds of things. And I no longer have to continue blaming myself for making mistakes because I'm human. So I am definitely trying to incorporate affirmations on a daily basis. But it's a ritual that I definitely need to work on.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that, because I would love to help you. Like, we can come up with an affirmation right here on the spot. Affirmations are simply declarations that you say. It could be very simple, like, I am loved, I am cared for, or you can go into more detail. my personal experience, I don't look in the mirror. I know a lot of people do that, and some people need that. For me, I was just like, ugh, I don't look in the mirror, but I am a writer at heart. I started to evaluate everything I was feeling in my dream life, and one, saying, what would I have to describe? What would describe me in those current places, and like my dream position, my dream feelings, my dream mental space? And then secondly, anything that I was feeling that was negative, that denounced who I am or challenged my worth, I started writing the direct opposite of that. So something I felt when I was going through my soul rehab was I felt so lonely. I blamed myself for a lot of what happened. And I just felt like I didn't have a village or a tribe. And I just felt, and that made me feel even more unloved. And so I started writing out like, I am loved beyond measure. The numbers of people around me do not reflect the measure of my worth. And so because I'm a writer, I like to get detailed with them. But then other ones would be super quick. Like some of them would just be like I'm a person who's on time, or I'm a person who people feel safe with. And that was important to me. And so I would love to, if you have a goal that you want to share, or whether it be like an emotional goal or something that you're trying to get to, and then we can come up with an affirmation.
Yeah, I'm totally down for that. So I think one of the biggest things that I'm working on is just trying to be more intentional and mindful in everything that I do. I'm the kind of person that can very much move in the motions without necessarily thinking, and lose myself in kind of just doing my day to day. So I would like to be a lot more intentional in my actions.
Okay, I love that. So I would literally start with that. Like, I am intentional with my actions. And then you can start with the main one, and then go into the detail of why you are this and what contributes to that. So I am intentional with my actions. I don't get overwhelmed when I have a lot on my plate. I carefully understand how to prioritize both myself and other tasks, and I never feel guilty for taking the time for me.
That's straight fire, AJ. That was awesome. I'm definitely after this recording, I'm writing that down, and I'm gonna say that to myself and definitely expand on it. But you did that so seamlessly. I felt that throughout my whole body. That was amazing. Thank you.
Oh no, that's great. No, but literally, so take the goal and just say you're doing that, or you are that, and then take what would that look like. So a person who's prioritizes their time, they're intentional, they care about things, they're thoughtful in how they manage their time. And then that's it. You just put an I in front of that. And I'm not going to lie, when I first started affirmations, I thought they were kind of corny. I also challenged the validity of them because I've never done them before. So I just wonder, am I just saying these things and is it going to be have any effect, or is it going to be placebo effect where I'm telling myself it's doing something? But I can definitely say that affirmations have changed my life. And I think it comes down to spirituality. I personally believe in God. Some people, they believe in the universe, but whatever, there's general consensus that my words have power. From a God perspective, I believe that life and power is in the death of the tongue. From some of my more openly spiritual friends, they believe the universe, they're co-creators with the universe, and they manifest. So whatever your belief system is, there's this general and consistent consensus of I can partake in what happens in the future by my words. And I really believe that, the words they have power over you. So even with depression, after having gone through that, I will never say again that I have depression. It can be tricky, especially if you've been clinically diagnosed. I'm not necessarily talking about that, but I will say I'm experiencing depressive symptoms. But I don't ever want to just speak over myself that I'm depressed. So that's my identity and that's who I am. And so same with anxiety. I had to learn how to switch my words. So I'll be I'm experiencing a really anxious moment right now and it sucks. Instead of being I have anxiety or I'm an anxious person, because I'm not. It's just that's what I'm having in the moment. And we all have these different thoughts and different feelings. And so I just have, as I've begun to understand my own soul rehab process, that's a personal conviction for me, is how I describe myself.
I think the power of of how you frame it. And I feel like a lot of the people that I've known throughout my life have been diagnosed with depression or anxiety, and just I think the semantics around describing what that feels like, of I have anxiety about this versus like this situation makes me feel extremely anxious. There's a different kind of power in that. And, and yes, in some ways it can be tricky and can be triggering, but I think the way in which you are able to have control over the situation, I think when you approach it and say, I have anxiety, there's a sense of like not being able to have control over that respective situation in that moment, but being able to like fully give sound and verbalize this situation or this moment makes me feel very anxious. It gives more sound and it allows you to process, but also have a little bit more control over what's being done at that moment. And I think that's really powerful to give it a lot more than just kind of like anxiety, depression.
Isn't to dismiss anybody, because I've been on the clinical side, more of like the choosing to do therapy more out of leisure. Like I've been on both sides of it, and so I empathize with all. But I agree with you. I think there is a sense of powerlessness that comes when you're just like, this is it, this is who I am and stuff. And so kind of reframing that framework to me is so critical for anybody who's going through anything. And even like it can be intimidating depending on the people in your life. And like there's been therapists I've had to chat because they'd be like, oh, you're just depressed. Because sometimes, especially in today's age where mental health is so much more, there's so much more of awareness surrounding it, it can almost be easier to write it off as that than trying to dig deeper. So there was like one therapist, and I knew they weren't going. I was trying them out. We had just done a few sessions, and I realized like one, they were just ready to just give me a diagnosis versus actually want to do the work with me. And I had to really correct and be like, yes, some of what I'm saying might reflect some of this other stuff, but like, I know who I am. And I've also been there. So I know what actual depression for me looks like. You barely know me. And it can be intimidating because especially when you're just trying to heal and it's so vulnerable and you just want help. So then you just take everything they say and hold it up. But sometimes I just feel like you have to be like, guard your heart and your spirit, no matter what you're going through. And I feel like that's what Soul Rehab is. Again, it's that warrior mindset. It's that even if I'm experiencing like this like crazy pain, like it doesn't end here, and for some people, a part of their soul rehab is medication, so it's not like an either or. It's just honoring your truest self and refusing to give up. And so if for some people not giving up means I've chosen to fight by adhering to this prescription, amazing, And for other people, it's I've chosen to fight by X, Y, and Z. Both are valid. Both are needed.
Right. And it's validating and giving yourself space to fight. And like you said, it's recognizing your truth, and it really is just loving yourself and being able to know yourself well enough to know what tools work for you to get to that place of healing and a sense of inner peace.
Yeah. And I think, self-love is thrown out so much, but affirmations to me are not just verbal. I think the core of affirmations, you're affirming yourself. So I affirm myself through my space. That was a huge thing, whether it be having just a beautiful aesthetic because I'm beautiful and I'm worthy of good things, or hanging up quotes that are literally affirming, saying like, you're worthy, you're loved, whatever. Another way I affirmed myself, I saw this from somebody in college. She posted on Instagram that she set a calendar reminder. And at like 12 noon every day, it said like, you are loved. You affirm yourself beyond just saying these affirmations and say them. You affirm, like you said, through self-love. And it's just a way of how you think. And I think cultivating a space that affirms you and doesn't detract, that means like not being in toxic environments or toxic relationship. These are all things that affirm or can detract from you. And so affirmations are definitely not just writing them on a piece of paper and saying them out loud.
I don't think a lot of people think of it that way, that your environment plays a role in that affirmation for yourself. Even for myself, it's always like, oh, well, I can say it to myself. I'll say it to myself in the mirror. I'll write it down. But your space and the spaces that you go into, like you just said, is going to into a toxic environment or an uncomfortable environment, allowing you to affirm yourself in the ways that you're looking to affirm yourself? Or is it going to distract you from the goals that you're trying to achieve within and by yourself? Something as simple as putting quotes up in your living room or in your office that you have to face every single day, and there is no denying it because it's in your face, and you're letting yourself know, like, you're beautiful, you're worthy, you're valuable, you're hardworking, and you're healing, and that's okay. Forgive yourself, all those different kinds of things. You can't escape it. Like, if it's in your face all the time, you can't escape it. And like you said, it becomes a part of you. It becomes second nature. And you no longer have the space to not believe it anymore because you're rewiring your brain to understand that as truth.
Yeah, no, I love that. My final thought would be, and you could totally go first in this, is what advice would you give to somebody who's just starting their healing journey, just starting their soul rehab journey?
I think for me, and I'm finding that I'm having this conversation a lot with some of the people that I know that I want to have on this podcast, but are afraid that they can't be vulnerable with themselves. Allow yourself to get to know yourself. And sometimes that journey can be scary because you have to face some things that you may have not been ready to face or don't want to face. Allowing yourself to know yourself is what is affirming, because you have to know yourself, to love yourself, to embrace yourself, to figure out what your highest version of yourself looks like in order to take the steps to get there. Create space to know you and embrace you, the good, bad, and the ugly, because you're worth it.
I love that. What I would tell anybody who's looking to start their soul rehab journey is just make the decision. Like, literally make the promise to yourself that from this day forward, I'm choosing to fight. And that doesn't mean from this day forward, I won't have meltdowns. From this day forward, I won't have days where I just like giving up. It literally is just that I will have those days and I will still know that this isn't the end. And after that, it begins, and it's truly a commitment in like mind, heart, spirit to not let this define you, to get up. You've been beaten down in the boxing ring, and to get up anyway. And I think the scary thing about pain is that sometimes it really just starts to feel like it's no longer just an experience, but a lifestyle. And I think that is a lie. I have been through crazy things. I have talked to people who have been through even crazier, and every one of them, it wasn't pretty. And it's not this just finite, okay, I decided to heal, so I'm healed. Like, it's a journey. Like, there is no arrival of healing. And I think that's something I didn't understand initially. I thought that I've gone through a hard time. This was it. I used to make up my mind. This is it. This was the hardest moment of my life. Boom, we've gone. Now we can just cruise through. And life does not work like that.
Right.
At all. And so just making that commitment and honoring yourself in those moments. And it means not letting yourself sink. So when I do feel like crying and when I do feel excruciating pain, I also in the back of my mind am telling myself, even if it's just like a little whisper, this isn't it. This isn't it. Like, there's still hope. There's still stuff to look forward to. Like, this isn't it. You still have so much more to do with yourself. And just constantly reminding yourself. Because if you're not careful, your thoughts in this world will have you thinking that that's just it. And you're supposed to die in the dust with your pain. And I just refuse to believe that we were brought on this earth just to experience pain. And so... And there's no formula. I used to think, okay, I'm going to light a candle at night and I'm going to do an hour journaling. I'm going to do my affirmations in the morning. I'm going to jog during the day. Like, life is like messy. My health teacher used to say, is your life spaghetti or waffles? Because waffles are compartmentalized and clean. And I'm like, no, it's spaghetti, 100%. You get sauce everywhere. The noodles are all noodles. Those are all over the place in different shapes and sizes. And that's our life, and it's okay. And I think that's the true victory. I used to think it was in being isolated from pain, but I now recognize it's in enduring that pain and still coming out on the other side. When you're writing your affirmations, if you feel like that cringe, like, oh, this isn't me. Like, the affirmation you need to be saying. And so whether it's like, oh, I'm not beautiful, you know, when I say like I'm beautiful, because some of them will make you feel very awkward and uncomfortable. But the ones that make you feel uncomfortable the most are the ones that you need the most.
That's a good way of thinking of it. And I think more and more, like as I get older and I go through things and I push myself to heal. And I feel like a lot of other people that I know that are on this have started their healing journey and their soul rehab. Like get to that point where it's like, oh, like do I really need this? And they find that the more that they lean into that discomfort, that's exactly what they needed. So yeah, I really appreciate that. And I love the like analogy, the visual of like waffles versus spaghetti. I'm a huge foodie, so I think that's definitely something that I'm going to use more often, of like, you know, our life isn't waffles. Like we're not decompartmentalized. And as much as we can try to control everything and to file things in our head and box things and label things, life just doesn't work that way. You can't necessarily predict the future no matter how much you organize. I planned everything from, I remember like being in the 7th grade, like already going to like college open houses because I knew what I wanted to do and I knew where I wanted to study. And I had planners and calendars and Excel sheets of everything that I was going to achieve. And I remember like being frustrated when nothing ever went as planned. And it took me to understand the more that I plan, the more that I'm going to be disappointed because I'm creating unrealistic expectations because I only have control over me. I don't have control over what is going to result in things outside of me that have nothing to do with my own respective energy. I feel that. I feel everything that you just said. And I know that a lot of people that are going to listen to this episode are going to walk away and understand that there are a lot of simple tools that we can use to begin our soul rehab journey. And it's not going to be pretty, as you said, and it's not going to be easy, but it's worth it. And when you're on the other side, you can sit here and say, like, I was able to give sound and words to how I see myself and understand my value. And it's taken time, but it was worth it.
Yeah, 100%. And it's as simple as a decision. And for me, that personal decision was not questioning if I'm supposed to be here. Because I used to feel the pain so deeply that I literally questioned my existence if this was just my life. And for me, it was that decision of knowing, even if this is the most excruciating feeling, I'm no longer questioning if I'm supposed to be here. And choosing to hope and choosing to believe that like greater is ahead, even when nothing around me is saying that. And we all go through our own soul rehab journeys. If you decide, I believe the happiest people are the warriors. They're not the ones whose lives are perfect. I just believe it's the people who have confronted the unspeakable and made it out anyway. And they did it because they chose to.
Absolutely. I love that. Put that on a postcard, put it on a poster or something. That is absolutely beautiful. AJ, is there anything that you would like to close out on?
Yeah, I think I would just like want to send digital hugs to anybody who is in the deep of it all, who's making that decision or considering making that decision to get down and dirty, like you said, like getting to know yourself. And I would just want to send out love and like peace and like feelings of strength and just letting you know, like you got this. And I know you don't think it right now, and it's not for you to see it all in order to do it, but just know, like, I'm rooting for you. I believe God has your back in this, and nothing can break you. It might try, you might feel broken at times, but nothing can permanently break you. And so all the love, and I am rooting for you. It's a journey. It's a marathon, not a sprint, 100%. But, and I'm proud of you for even considering making the decision to change your life and to change the way life has tried to destroy you. Like, you're already a warrior, and you're not a warrior because you like have won. You're a warrior because you're choosing to fight.
I know that we're miles away from each other, but I feel all of your love and all of your light. And I know that once this episode's released, everyone that is going to hear this is going to feel that as well. So thank you for all of that.
Thank you so much. Oh, and you asked for like a closing affirmation. This is just off the top of my head, so hopefully it flows. Let's make an affirmation for anybody who is ready to make the decision to do their soul rehab. And I would start off with saying, like, My life changes today. There is everything I've experienced. There's also everything that is yet to come. And I am choosing to believe, no matter what I've experienced, no matter what the pain I feel, that I am created for so much more, that greater is coming. I'm expectant of good things to come to me and to happen to me consistently. I'm expectant of belly laughs, uncontrollable smiles. I'm expectant of joy. And I know that each day I'm getting stronger. Each day my resilience is being revealed. And each day I'm coming one step closer to the very thing I always hoped I would be. I'm doing this.
You are now listening to You Heard.